Tonight, we take you to a place where kidnappings, torture, and even brutal beheadings have become common. It's not Iraq or Afghanistan. No, it's much closer than that. We're talking about Mexico.
Killings, drugs, guns, U.S. contractors teaching torture techniques to Mexican police, and hundreds of millions in American military aid. The war on drugs is transforming the relationship between the United States and its southern neighbor.
$1.4 billion the United States has committed to help Mexico fight its war. The majority of that money will go toward equipment and training.
Plan Mexico is following a tried and failed U.S. policy on drugs. As long as Washington continues to focus on cutting the supply to the U.S. rather than treating the drug problem from within, questions must be asked about its complicity in the escalating violence seen across the border.
And so Mexico, through this plan, Mexico has to take on many of the priorities of the United States. It's counter-narcotics, but it's also counter-terrorism and border security under a very militarized model that Bush is famous for. I don't believe it's a collaboration. If you look at the package itself, first of all, there's no cash that goes to Mexico. So what it is, it's equipment and training, which means that the lion's share of the packet remains with U.S. companies, both defense contractors, IT companies, and increasingly those private security companies that are responsible for so many human rights violations throughout the world.
Blackwater operates in Iraq, Afghanistan, they have a private CIA, and now they're bidding for a share of a $15 billion contract with the Pentagon.
It's one day after President Bush signed the Plan Mexico Merida initiative into law, this torture scandal erupted with U.S. contractors on video teaching Mexican police torture techniques.
If you look at the bill itself, it's just much broader than most people realize, and that's one of the most dangerous things about it, because by cutting this broad swath, it includes not only counterterrorism and counter-narcotics, but it includes border security. So in many of the clauses, what you have is actually the criminalization of migrants, where they're lumped into the same category with terrorists and
drug traffickers.
And with drug traffickers, yes.
So, Jorge, this is about immigration. No one's saying a word about immigration.
Immigration, since NAFTA, is a result of the fact that NAFTA, which has largely benefited U.S. corporations, has eliminated so many family farms in Mexico and so many jobs that used to be labor-intensive jobs that people come north as a result looking for a way to survive. But we never talk about the way in which our trade agreements contribute to this.
Like refugees in a war zone, many residents are now packing up to leave.
This is the 2010 Border Security Expo. With me is Michael Rosenberg. He's the Vice President of E.J. Krauss, the company that is organizing this event.
Agencies from all over the country and the world come to see this equipment. The sign outside reads, "No protesters." But inside the convention center, it's all business and interest is high.
The phone has been ringing off the hook.
Attendance has doubled since last year. Government agencies and companies checking out everything from meals on the go to this SUV loaded up with a machine gun. The company's got a demo video on YouTube. Most, though, are much more practical for our border issues. This company makes a radar that mounts on top of a lift. It can pick up movement up to 12 kilometers away.
Certainly you can tell the difference between a person walking there and some kind of an animal that might have gotten in and triggered the radar.
There's a camera that can zero in on the target within seconds. It does infrared, too. Their clients are all over the world, and business is growing. The U.S.-Mexico border is just part of the huge border security business. The technology is in demand all over the world.
Looks like you have quite a few exhibitors here.
Yeah.
Tell me about the exhibitors.
Well, the technology that's here is similar to the technology that the federal government has used as part of their Secure Border Initiative. It's everything from rugged terrain vehicles that have to operate over long distances in a rugged terrain, to surveillance cameras, to sensors and monitors that can detect people or vehicles. It's training. It's also protection for our agents as well. So those are the types of things that we have.
On the streets, it seems that the huge number of security forces are completely powerless to stem the violence.
Mexico's police are overwhelmed in part because drug traffickers have them outgunned.
Mexican soldiers seized a huge weapons arsenal on Wednesday in a wealthy residential area in Guadalajara, Mexico. The seizure included rifles, guns, rocket launchers, grenades, as well as drugs, communications equipment, and a vehicle.
Tell me why technology is so important right now in securing our border.
Well, unfortunately, the whole issue of illegal immigration is sort of upside down, we feel. It's not just about people coming over the border looking for jobs and not going through the proper channels to get naturalized, but now we're dealing with drug cartels that are, they have drop houses here, there's violence, there's kidnapping, there's ransom, there's guns going from north to south and back, and unfortunately in some cases the bad guys are better trained and have better equipment, if you will, than some of our own agents here.
More surveillance in the United States has not actually helped with the problem of defense contractors run wild.
One of the biggest problems here is the staggering number of weapons on the streets. High-powered assault rifles and machine guns are easy to come by. According to some sources, 2,000 illegal firearms are brought into Mexico every day from the United States.
The people over there are willing to pay $5,000 for a gun that you can buy for $600 over here. Somebody's going to try to sneak one across the border.
We've seen as many as 13 semi-trucks going into Mexico, and the federal government just non-complacent about it. They could care less.
It isn't just guns coming from the U.S. that's fueling Mexico's war. It's cash. According to estimates, drug trafficking brings in as much as $38 billion a year from the U.S.
There are more and more people involved in drug trafficking now than ever before. With more people going into business, there's always someone who wants to control that business. And that's the reason for the murders, the fights to control the cities, and to control the drug routes. Large shipments of drugs can't come into the Mexican ports or airports without the authorities knowing about it. It's obvious and logical. The government has to be involved in everything that is corrupt.
Drug mafias and law enforcement are deeply intertwined.
Why have drug cartels been so effective at corrupting police forces, corrupting politicians?
Essentially because they have a tremendous economic power and a tremendous intimidation power that comes from cash and weapons.
As long as you have that supply, and as long as you have that demand and such a lucrative business involved, you'll never be able to stop it.
What we have here is the so-called war on drugs, which really is a counterinsurgency war. It has been going all the way back to when the CIA overthrew Jacobo Arbenz in Guatemala in 1954, the dirty Contra Wars, the death squads in El Salvador and Nicaragua, and now we have U.S. mercenary companies that are being deployed in Latin America. The Colombian government spends half of its U.S. military aid hiring for-profit U.S. war corporations to fight the so-called war on drugs, which is really a counterinsurgency war.